Hello everyone. As per the last video, I demonstrated some of the tips to implement the Palo Alto VM in HA in the Azure by following the Palo Alto Networks documentation. Today I'm just going to go through step by step to implement the whole deployment in few minutes. Just try to stick through the whole video because I'm going to throw simple tips here and there throughout the whole video, whichever come across my mind. So if you see right now, I have only one resource group, which is mandatory if you are using some of the lab accounts. It asks you to create a network watcher. So that's all I have. I do not have any other resource group. I do not have no VNet and nothing like that. So basically, we're gonna start with a new resource group. Let's call it Palo VM HA, right? Palo VM. Let's just say Palo VM 001. Let's use East US region, review and create. So this is the first thing you would want to do, Palo VM. Just background, just keep in mind that you would not want to have any single thing in your resource group. It needs to be empty, right, to start with the first VM. So quickly search Palo Alto networks here, and then you will see on the side you can have a different kind of a next generation firewall. I'm gonna go with the pay-as-you-go firewall bundle 1, which has some of the licenses like threat protection and basic licensing, not all of them. If you want all of the licenses, you would want to go with the pay-as-you-go, or most likely in enterprise environment you're just gonna use bring your own license, right? So just for demonstration purpose, I'm gonna go with the pay-as-you-go. If you haven't seen my last video, please go through that. It refer about the licensing, how you can change the licenses, or if you can change the licenses, right? So let's go with this firewall deployment, the first one from the marketplace. Let's select the region. We selected East US 2, so we're gonna select everything else. Sorry, East US. Right, let's call Palo admin, right? And I'm gonna quickly choose one password. Just keep in mind that when you select the username is case sensitive, right? So whatever you write it down, just keep in mind that's going to be case sensitive. So you will have to remember as exactly as you write it down over there. And next thing, if you do not remember the username or password, you will have to redeploy the firewall, right? So let's go to quickly networking, right? So here it starts with the basic setups we have. I am gonna go with the new setup, right? So that's why, as I showed you earlier, I do not have any VNet configured anywhere. But if you have in your organization, you can select your VNets from your same subscription or your same region, right? So that's how you can select your VNet here. And then if you have subnets created, you can use those. Or if you do not have, then basically you would want to create a separate 10.0.0. These are all /24s. This deployment is going to create by itself, right? So next time when we deploy the second firewall, we're going to reuse these same subnets, right? So we'll take a look at on the second firewall. This is inbound resource. Just keep it as simple as you can for the initial deployment, because every time you start closing these things out, and then it's going to create a problem later on, and you wouldn't know that you close down inbound sources. So right now, by 0.0.0.0/0, we're going to make sure that we have access from anywhere, right? So let's start with that, right? Configuration. This is simple as is. Firewall management is going to have a public IP. You can call it Palo VM 01. That's the first firewall. Okay, so now I put the name by number 01, and it is not available in the region, so I put a 001, and let's see if that's available. Okay, that is available. So just keep in mind that this one needs to be, this is going to be attached to the public IP you created, right? and that prefix by eastuscloud.azure.com as the DNS name. All right, so let's quickly select the VM series name. So I'm just going to do the same thing, Palo VM 001. Okay, Bootstrap, we are not going to demonstrate the Bootstrap today. D3 version 2. Based on your requirement, you can take a look at the Palo Alto documentation, but what we are going to demonstrate today, we do not need to change any D3 V2 version of the VM size. Basically, what is this version is, if you're not familiar with Azure, that every version has a specific kind of resources, specific kind of CPU, and all other bandwidth and things like that, all the resources attached to that VM capacity. So something like you are selecting a laptop with the different model numbers, right? Having a different resources. So if you change the size, it's going to change the resources. Also, just keep in mind that all this says very simple thing for vCPUs, but if you go to different version of the VM type, right, it also can call for vCPUs, but you don't know what kind of CPUs in the background. So as soon as you change these versions, it changes the CPUs as well in the background. It may be just 4 vCPUs, but the CPUs kind of be different. Some of them it's going to be 4 gigahertz, some of them are going to be 3.2 gigahertz and things like that, right? So we're going to go with a basic setup next, and okay, this is gonna quickly do the validation, and we're gonna quickly just create it, right? All right, I am back with the deployment is succeeded. We implemented the firewall. So let's quickly take a look what it implemented, right? So let's go to recent resource group. I have only one of them, Palo VM. I misspelled the name. That's okay. This is lab environment. All right, so what it implemented is default NSG, right? Firewall VNet, right? It give a name by itself, FW VNet, right? Palo VM. So this is actual firewall with a virtual machine on it. This is Palo VM 001 public IP attached to the management interface. These are the 3 interfaces, and this is the storage disk automatically deployed with the VM to store the VM. Right? So interesting thing just to see here that it gave a name as on the Nic Cards, it gave a name as Palo VM 001, Palo VM 001 -ETH0. So we use Palo VM 001 in 2 places. One to give a DMZ name, one to give a name of the DNS name, and one to give a name of the host itself, right? Appliance itself. So what usually does is give it a name of the appliance and the DNS name and -ETH0, ETH1, ETH2. Just to clarify that ETH0 is going to be always management, and from ETH1 onwards, it's going to keep increasing all the interfaces from in the firewall from Ethernet 1 to 3 onwards, right? So if you take a look at ETH1, right, it's going to be ETH1 right here in the firewall. If you're going to see ETH2, it's going to be here ETH2 as well. So it's going to be basically the same way, right? So if companies doesn't like these kind of names and you have a very specific name convention, try to delete all of this, right? Just get rid of them and do not turn on the VM before you do that. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to delete that, but as soon as you try to delete that, it's going to give you error on the public IP address which is attached, right? So that's why it will not let you do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give them a nice name, right, basically, and recreate all of this. Also, we will need to get rid of the public IP address. This is created as, let's take a look at that. It created as a basic SKU when you implement it by default, but it says the upgrade to standard SKU based on the recommendation. So in my experience, we did build up a lot of production environments with the basic SKU, and they did not turn out well, right? So after a while, we had to change the main SKU, right? So before you go for any further, let's fix those things, right? Let's deassociate this IP, get rid of the basic SKU before you even turn on the VM. So we can do that. Go back to the resource group. Let's take out all of the Nic cards. So if you want to delete the Nic cards, basically you will need to go to VM first, right? Let's quickly go back to VM, Palo VM 001, right? And go to networking. And we have a lot of Nic cards, right? So let's see if we can detach them or not. All right, each one. Right now we cannot detach them. Let's take a look. There is another way to detach the Nic cards. So yeah, basically the VM is running. It automatically started that, so that's why you cannot detach those Nic cards. So basically you'll have to stop it first, and as soon as it is stopped, we'll have to wait till then. As soon as it is stopped, you can detach those Nic cards, right? We're also gonna add one more Nic card, right, to add a HA interface. So right now, if you see in the resource group, we only have 1, 2, and 3, like 0, 1, 2. One is gonna be management with the public IP. One is gonna be Ethernet 1, Ethernet 2 for Ethernet 2, probably trust and untrust, and then you will need another interface to form an HA. So when we delete all of this, we're gonna basically do that as well. So this one is detached from the Nic card, so we can also delete that, right? So while we are waiting for the VM to stop, we could create a quick public IP, right? Public IP address. Let's create one. Let's call it IPv4. Make sure you are selected with SKU as a standard. That's the important one. And we will call it FWMGMT01, right? Everything is as simple. We do not want to do DNS label and whatnot. Just create that for now, right? Also, we will have to select the resource group. Make sure you select the resource group which is selected for the Palo VMs. Gonna create it, right? So we can use it later on. Let's see if the virtual machine is stopped. Okay, perfect. So by now our virtual machine is stopped. So let's go there, go to networking, and you now have option to attach and detach all the network cards. So let's start with that. Detach it. Okay. All right. Let's go to second one. Detach network card. Okay. So if you go to the third one, it will not let you detach the last one as well, because there must be at least one Nic card attached to that. So that's why it will not let you do that. So what we're gonna basically do is we're gonna create a new network interfaces, right? Create. We're gonna call it FW ETH 0, or let's say call MGMT for management, right? I'm gonna make sure we select East region, whatever the region you're implementing, right? East US, right? Virtual network is correct. Subnet, okay, we are creating management, so let's say select the management one, and we can keep it dynamic for now. We're gonna lock it down everything later on. Make sure we have a NSG applied. Do not forget this one, right? Because if you forget this one, it will not let you allow any traffic as soon as you use standard SKU attached public IP. So you definitely need default NSG attached to that network interface. So do not forget that, right? So all right, so firewall ETH management, right? So let's click. Let's see, take a look at that. Anything else is important? Nope, selected everything. Let's click next. I'm not going to use a lab. It tags in a lab environment. So let's review plus create. Right, everything seems correct. Palo VM 001 and create. All right, so that's done, right? All right, so I had a quick interruption in lab. So what I have right now is a firewall ETH management, as I show you, I created, and I just deleted all of the other ones after detaching from the VM. But as I said, we're gonna keep doing new Nic cards. Basically, we will need 8 total Nic cards, right? 4 on each firewall, 1 for HA interface, 1 for trust interface, 1 for untrust interface, and 1 for management. All right, so let's start doing it. So it's going to call it FW Trust 01. Right, it's a same VNet East-US region, and we're going to make sure we select the trust subnet. Network security group on this one, it doesn't matter you allow it or not. Whatever you allow it, make sure you NSG has a granular control over your traffic. So even if you allow from the firewall, it's not gonna pass. It's not gonna let the traffic pass, right? So we're gonna basically create the FW Trust 01. Right? Deployment is in progress. By then, we're gonna create a new network interface after that. Okay, let's wait for that to come up. Okay, it did not come up. Let's see where it did go. Let's go to resource groups. Did I create it in a long? No, right place. Okay, there we go. Firewall Trust 01. Let's create a next one. Create. All right, so same thing. Palo VM. Just keep doing the same thing until you create all 8 interfaces. If you want to skip the video, this part, I'm just gonna keep doing the same thing to create all the interfaces. So FW Untrust 01. Select the correct VNet. Make sure we select this as untrust, so we create an untrust. And default NSG. Right. Okay, and we don't need IPv6, so just gonna check that. And review and create. And create. Right. Right. So next thing we're gonna create is for the second firewall. We haven't deployed a second firewall, but while we are creating the Nic cards, just let's keep going with that and make sure we create all the Nic cards, right? Firewall VNet, correct one. Let's select the management, right? Make sure on this one specifically, you're gonna assign a default NSG, as I said earlier, to allow the traffic from outside. Review and create. That's just done, and create. All right, so that's gonna do the deployment. Let's create a next one. Create resource group is Palo VM 001, FW Trust 02. Select the trust dynamic. We don't need these. Create it and create. All right, Nic card. Create one more. Palo VM FW Untrust 02. And we select untrust, which is selected already. Everything looks correct. Review plus create and create. Right. Okay, so let's go back to resources 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, what are we missing more? Trust 01, trust 02, untrust 01. We're still waiting for untrust 02. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Sixth one is coming soon. But if you try to create a HA, right, over here, just give it a name FWHA01. But if you see, you do not have HA subnet created by default. So you're just gonna basically have to go to create a new subnet. So to create a subnet, I usually go to virtual networks, right? Select your main VNet, go to subnets, and create a new subnet. Give it a name HA, right? For my lab environment, 3.0 makes sense. 0, 1, 2, and 3. But if you have a specific environment, please select those IP address ranges beforehand, so then you can configure it. I'm not going to apply any network security resource group or anything like that, no routing table, nothing. It might be based on environment, based on your Azure full environment, but I'm going to keep it simple and save it. So now we're going to have a HA interface subnet, so we can create a Nic Cards for that subnet, right? Name is gonna be FWHA01. Hopefully we have subnet ready to go. All right, we do, and we're gonna keep it dynamic for now, and that should be it. Review plus create, and the create. All right, let's wait for a second. Sometimes it doesn't take it. The next one. All right, so create. We can create the last one, FWHA02. Is 2S, this one, everything's correct. Select the HA. We don't need a network security group for that. Review plus create. Create, right? Okay. All right, so let's use those network interfaces. So for that, you basically go to your virtual machine, right, and go to networking. Now, if you see, you have only one interface attached. If you have followed my video, you might have the old one attached. So what you will have to do is attach a network interface and always attach the management very first. So if you attach in different order, they might gonna be when you turn on the VM, they're gonna be attached to the randomly as you attach to this VM. So try to stick with the order. So first one, you attach the management, right? So right now I have attached the management already, right? So next one, I am gonna attach network interface, which is untrust. That's what I want on my second interface. So let's take a look at untrust 01 and hit OK on it, right? So until it finish attaching, you're not gonna have an option to attach another interface. All right, so that's done. Option came back up. Let's attach the next interface, which is trust 01. Okay, so basically what I'm gonna have is my first interface is gonna be management, second interface is gonna be untrust, right, and then the third gonna be is trust. And now I have another option to do attach HA01, right? So that's my HA interface. All right, so the first VM is good to go, right? But we cannot access over internet because we did not attach the public IP yet back to the management interface. So for that, let's go to network interface card, go to firewall management, which is our first firewalls management interface, and so we gonna click on this one, and we want to associate the public IP and select the public IP we have for firewall management 01, right? And as you remember, we created with the standard SKU, not the basic SKU. If you select the basic SKU, you're gonna have a hell of a time to create a HA and failover, right? So this one is saved, right? We can go back, right? Let's completely go back. Right now I have everything in the recent, so I'm just gonna use it from here. Go to VM, and now if you see here, we have a public IP here, networking. We have all 1, 2, 3 interfaces. It did not attach the HA interface yet. There we go. We have a HA interface now after refreshing it. All right, so that's good to go. Make sure we have a NSG attached on a management interface, so that's good. We got a static SKU, standard SKU attached on a public IP. If you are selecting the public IP for your organization, you can select the static public IP when you create it, right? So this machine is ready to go, right? Until it starts, a quick one that, as I discussed while deploying the VM, I did not change operating system. We keep it a latest operating system. So when we select a specific operating system, it usually gives a small problems. So I always keep a static latest OS, and then after the deployment, if I need to upgrade it or downgrade it, I do it by myself, right? It saves a time, right? That's what I learned over time. So another thing is, if you downgrade the operating system, if you downgrade the OS on the Palo, right, you need to select your own saved backup file. So if you let it downgrade directly using autosave.xml file, it's gonna lose your username and password, right? And you won't be able to log into anymore, and you will only have an option to redeploy the virtual machine, right? And redo whole thing, whatever we did. So always keep in mind, whenever you downgrade the Azure Palo Alto firewall, you have to select your own backup while you install the operating system, right? All right, so VM is up and running. You're going to copy this public IP, all right, and then HTTPS, right, and put IP in here, hit enter, right? So as you see, it doesn't come up. That another quick tip is, these VMs takes a long time to come up on internet, right? So if you are impatient, that won't work. You have to really wait for like 3 to 4 minutes basically to be able to log into the firewall. All right, so the firewall came back up online after three or 3.5 minutes. I quickly logged in, saved my password here. If you remember, as I said, a username is case sensitive. Log in with your username and password, whatever you selected very first. All right, and then you'll be prompted with the new UI of the 10.1 series. I'm not sure what it's going to be. Okay, it's a 10.1.0 version. All right, so if you see, it says basic information about my VM and whatnot. Also, it's going to be apply the license of VM 300, right? Based on the user resources in the licenses, we're going to have a licenses based on the VMware bundle 1, which is only with the threat prevention and things like that. And you can also go to dynamic update, check now, and make sure you can access everything. So I quickly hit it check now just to show you that the things won't work at all as soon as you log in. So for that, basic setup is required. First of all, most important thing is make sure your Palo VM host name is correct here as you have in the VM, right? So if you see, my virtual machine name is Palo VM 001, right? And that's what I have, Palo VM 001. If you have a different name here and in the Azure, do not waste your time. Fix that very first, otherwise the HA is not going to work. It's going to be really bad, right? Okay, so next thing, let's start with basic things to get set up, right? DNS server, right? And right, so NTP we can do 0.us.pool.ntp.org. One is good enough for now. Click OK. Sometimes I learned the timing can be painful as well. So quickly, let's go ahead and do. I usually do America, New York. So I'm in EST timing. So let's do that quickly. What is the time out now? It's at 10:51. So it's 22:51, right? And click OK. 9:24. So you get the So usually this happens when you try to change the time directly in the firewall. It looks like as soon as you change the time, the session is timed out and things like that. So what would be the next step is try to keep only your DNS server and the time server in it, as well as the time zone, right? And it should pick up the time later on as after you commit the change. All right, so let's take a quick look if it still has all the configuration what we did. Management, it has a US Pacific, so we're just going to quickly change the time zone. As I said, America. Oh, no. America, New York, and click OK. Let's commit that change. Right. Okay. I'm in a lab environment, so I'm not going to worry about too much when I commit the changes. So I'm not going to go through whole the review process and make sure what I'm pushing the change, but definitely if multiple people working on a deployment, you got to make sure that what changes you're pushing. All right, so this firewall is good to go. As soon as this commit is successful, I'm going to quickly check it can reach to the license server, get the dynamic updates and whatnot. All right, so let's go to dynamic updates and devices and dynamic updates and check now. All right, so we have a lot of dynamic updates now. So let's quickly have fun and download and install all the time. All right, so pretty fast installation done. These are all this for IoT. We are not using those features right now, so I'm not gonna worry about it now, right? All right, so how about the secondary VMs? So the fun start from here, right? Let's quickly search for Palo Alto VM, Palo Alto HA in Azure, right? And the first thing will come up with this link, which has your link to implement from a GitHub, right? So let's quickly get that link and sample GitHub. That's what I use every time, and click on deploy to Azure, right? Okay. So as soon as you click on it, it basically redirects to your Azure portal. Make sure you open in the same browser so you can redirect to your Azure account directly. It will pop up this account. from this standpoint, this is going to be completely different than you implemented your first VM. So let's take a look at subscription. I only have one subscription, so select that. Resource group, we definitely have to select the existing resource group, right? You do not want to put a VMs if you want to do HA in a separate account. Right, so over here, East US, correct location is selected automatic. We don't need to change that. Inbound NSG, it's gonna be same ones, we're not gonna change that. VM name, we wanted to Palo VM 002, right? Over here, again, we're not gonna touch anything, we're just gonna keep latest. Same D3 V2 version of the VM. Okay, so virtual network name, FWVNet, right? Let's quickly go there and check everything, right? What we have, home, let's go to our resource groups, Palo VM 001. Okay, so what do we have? It's called FWVNet, right? Select word to word FWVNet, VNet new or existing. Definitely it's going to be existing, right? Make sure if you have your production VNet, you have to type it out here, right? You do not have to keep the same one. I'm keeping same as I have using the default naming schemes, right? So next one is virtual network address prefix, right? So what is your prefix here is 10.0.0./16 or /8, right? Let's take a look at that. What is that? I'm just gonna do everything like checking it with you just to make sure that you know where to check what things. So if you go to your VNet, you will see address space, which is you can copy it here, go back to the firewall and paste it here, right? Okay, so now it's virtual network existing resource group name. Same way, you go to your virtual network and resource group name is this one. Click on this copy and put it here. Come on, because we are using everything we are using everything existing, right? Okay, so subnet 0, you're gonna select your management subnet, untrust subnet, and trust subnet. Make sure you type it correctly, word to word, capital to capital, small to small. If you do not, it's gonna cause problems, right? So subnet 0 is management. What was the management? Let's take a look at that. Go back to the Azure. All right, these are our subnets. Go to subnets. All right, management is 10.0.0./24. Let's type it out. 10.0.0.0/24. Right, one is untrust. That is 10.0.1.0/24. Right, 10.0.2.0/24. Right, make sure going here 1.0, 2.0, right? We're not gonna worry about HA for now. We will have to attach it later after implementation. Admin username, we're gonna use the same username what I use in the other one, right? And the password. All right, we're not doing a SSH. We're gonna do with the password. All right, so public IP, new or existing, doesn't matter what you do, right? You can keep it new, keep it existing, doesn't matter. If you have created already existing one, you can use the existing one, but I suggest you guys go with the minimal changes in here and change later, right? Also, make sure you name everything correctly because you might not be able to change the names on some things, right? So okay, we're gonna create a new public IP, right? It is asking for public IP resource group name. We're gonna use the same resource group, right? Public IP address name, right? So that is I'm gonna say Palo PIP 02. I'm giving a separate name because as you remember, this is gonna create a basic SKU public IP and we will get rid of it and enter the standard public IP SKU later on after removing this. So just to give a random name for now, right? Public IP allocation method, just keep it for production, just keep it static, right? Of course. Zone, what zone we want, do not change. I mean, if you have requirement anything for availability zones for you guys, then do the availability zone names, availability sets. We're not gonna go over those complexity in this demonstration. So everything's good to go. Review and create. All right. So I always expect some of the errors here, but this time there was none. So that's a good thing, because again, we are keeping things super simple, right? If you're going through production, there might be some problems. Go here and click on the raw error and go with the names, right? Of course, if you selected anything here like a VM name as anything in capital letters in there, it's going to give you the problem, because this deployment use this names as a DNS name of the public IP as well. So if you remember, in the last marketplace deployment, it asked for the DNS names, right? And this time it did not. Okay, so I think it's gonna take the names automatically, and it's gonna come up with this name, right? So create implementation. So if you notice here on screen, now it came with the Palo PIP02, but if you see here network interfaces, now they have a different name. They have a public IP name in the naming scheme with 8012 and the host name. So the last one, it was a little bit different. This time it is a little bit different. So I get a lot of complaints about customer environment that they do not like the namings to be different. So now I always go in there, get rid of all the Ethernets, Nic Cards as soon as it creates, but automatically in the process, and attach the new ones, right? So definitely we're gonna go through the same process of deleting VM, detaching the VMs, and attaching the VM. All right, I will be back when the deployment is done. All right, the deployment is complete. All right, let's shut it down the firewall and fix our Nic Cards, right? Let's go to resource group, Palo VM 001. Now make sure we have a correct firewall to shut it down, Palo VM 002. Right, let's stop that guy, and okay. All right, so let's start with detaching the public IP and creating a new public IP to attach that. Right, so this one was a Palo PIP02, deassociated, yes, right, and quickly search for public IP addresses, right. So first one called FWMZMT01, create a second one, make sure it is standard, again, make sure it is standard, FWMGMT02, right. We do not need anything else. Routing preference is going to be internet, Microsoft network through. Subscription is correct. Resource group is Palo VM 001, East US, zone redundant, and create. All right. So let's see if we have attached NSG correctly on the Nic Cards. Right. Home. Again, if you cannot hit the public IP of the firewalls, make sure you have NSG attached on the network interfaces, right? If you do not have attached, it doesn't allow any access. If you have attached, make sure you have a specific rule for inbound which allow everything. Okay. All right, so it is saving these changes, and we are still waiting for stopping the virtual machine. All right, so the good thing is we already have those Nic Cards created, so we just have to remove them from the virtual machine and start attaching that. So quickly, let's go to list of virtual machine, Palo VM02, networking, and see that, okay, we have an option to detach. Okay, all right, so this one was stopped, so now we have option. All right, so when you make these changes, go a little bit slow, right, than you would want, because sometimes it causes a problem by going too fast. It cannot properly propagate all those changes you're trying to make, right? Detach the each one and click OK. So wait after these small tasks get done and then do the next one. I've been burned a couple of times. So right, so you got that. As I said last time, you won't be able to detach the last one. So let's start attaching the management, right? So again, make sure you attach those interfaces in exact order you want. First one is going to be management, and from that onwards it's going to be based on each1, each2, and so on, right? So now you are attaching management interface, right? It's came back right there. So now you have option to detach the last one was there. Okay, after that's done, we're gonna attach untrust first, after trust, and then HA. Okay. Now let's attach interfaces. Let's say select the right one, untrust one next. Okay. All right, that's done. Let's attach network. One more as a trust is the next one. Let's do that. And we need the last one, which is HA, and okay. All right, while that's get done, let's remove what we do not need, right? So try to get rid of these things in your way out. It might be the case that you accidentally delete something else which you do not want while you are done with the whole project, or the things will there just hang out for a long time rather than you in the first place you should have got rid of, right? So let's delete everything which we do not need and give it a few seconds that all the PIP interfaces are deleted, right? Let's quickly go to network interfaces. We do not see anyone. I supposed to have 01 here, but I did not name it correctly. Okay, so let's quickly make sure. At the end of the day, we want ETH management or 0 subnet, right? So management on 0 subnet, HA on subnet 3, trust on subnet 2, and untrust on subnet 1, right? So that is correct. So if you see, those are coming from 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, and 4.5. So if you know that the Azure reserve 0, 1, 2, 3 IP addresses for internal routing, right? So you see these are only attached to Palo 001. It still doesn't show that these ones are attached. Let's quickly refresh it. It still doesn't show that, right? So let's start the VM and see what it says. Palo VM 002, and make sure those are connected. Okay, 02, 02, 02. It doesn't still show the management interface. So that's HA interface. But as the last time we refreshed it, it came back up. So that's a consistent behavior there. It did not come up earlier. Okay. All right. So let's see. Management interface has a public IP or not. So I do not think we attached it. So let's quickly go back and attach that so that we can access the firewall, right? IP configuration, right? This one doesn't have IP. And all right, so associate, if you remember, we did create a FWMGMT0, which is a standard SKU. We're gonna select that. For lab environment, we're just gonna keep it dynamic and save. All right, on some of these pages, sometimes you cannot go back while the changes are applying. So just keep eye on it and don't rush things, right? So after you get done everything, then let's start on virtual machine. So keep in mind, most of these changes we did require VM to be shut down, right? So that's why we implement the virtual machine, shut it down, make all the changes we need, and then bring it on, right? Which makes life a lot easier, right? So while the VM came up, VL come up, we're gonna start that, right? I did start that twice, but that's okay. All right, so let's take a look if we are getting the IP addresses correctly. So to do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all interfaces, right? And select them as a DHCP, right? And click OK, right? Just to make sure they get the correct zones, right? So let's select this default virtual router, right? And we don't have a secret zone, so let's create this one. The first one's supposed to be untrust. Zone protection profile, no, I'm not going to do that for now, and keep everything default for untrust zone. And okay, all right. Second interface was for trust zone, so layer 3, IPv4, it's a DHCP advanced, right? And default security zone, let's create a new one, let's call it a trust, right? So that's done, and okay. And third interface already, let's call it layer 3 IPv4 as a DHCP, of course, to make sure we get the correct routing. I am gonna say that this one is a trust for now, just to check if that gets the correct IP address, right? All right, and commit. I always do this to make sure. I know we made sure while we attaching the subnets, attaching the IP addresses, attaching the NIC, but always there are, if you're doing multitasking, there are always some fallbacks. So this is the first thing I always do, assign them as a DHCP and make sure those are on the right subnet as I need, right? So let's wait for commit to get completed, and then we can see. Okay, so as per our documentation, this seems correct. Untrust is on 1, trust is on, all right, so it didn't get the IP yet. Let's see if this one got there. Not yet. Okay, so this one, number 2, correct, and this should be number 3. All right, perfect. So all of them are ending with .4, right? As you would have here, .4 and .4. Right. So these things look really promising. And now let's see another VM came back up or not. Go to our resource group, go to our Palo VM 002. Where is that 002? Oh, I'm in already Palo VM. VM 001. Right, there we go. Oh, that's a public IP. Palo VM 002. It started. Let's copy the public IP, and we don't need this link anymore for now. We will review it later on when we need that. And let's take a look at that. So right now it's not up, so let's wait for that. Okay. Right, visit the website, visit the website. Oh, that's a different UI. See, even we selected the same as the latest. I think this one's gonna come on 9.0 or something, 9.1 or something. So let's save the password for now. It's gonna make it easier. All right, so yeah, it came on 9.1 series. So as I said, I knew this, they do not come on a same version, but I always do not change in a deployment, because as I said, they cause issues in it if you are trying to do so. So let's quickly go ahead and do the same changes. Over here you want to do America, New York. Yeah, I always put it wrong. Okay. America, New York over there, and services, let's put over DNS in here, public DNS. Okay. NTP, let's select one. NTP.org, and okay. Commit and commit JavaScript. Okay, so the firewall is not ready yet, so the first auto commit is not finished. Probably this change is gonna be reverted, but let's take a look later, right? So as we discussed last time, first thing you want to see after login is Palo VM 002, which is exactly you have in the Azure. So if you take a look at here, we have a exact same name, Palo VM 002. Right. So that's what we have. So that's a good thing. All right. So let's wait on this auto commit get done. All right. So we are back. The auto commit is done. Let's commit our changes, which gonna help us to go out on the internet and to take a look at licenses or whatnot. Okay, so that's being committed right now. But if you notice a couple of things here, you come up with the Azure ID, but the serial number is unknown, right? And it came up with the no VM license, right? Azure mode, and basically unlicensed version of the VM. Right? But the default gateway DHCP SIM 004, right? And this one came up on 005. Let's take a look at it really quick again. Management, interfaces, and this one is so DHCP 005. So this is the only interface is .5 on this one. Other one has, this one has a 4, and all other ones are vice versa. All right. So if you are enterprise customer, then you will have to buy a flex credit, which is a new way of providing licenses from the Palo Alto, and then you will register the VM in the support portal using those flex credit and register this VM. And when you come here, then you can use the popped up or auto generated auth codes, come here and add in licensing. So you're just gonna quickly here put that activate license using authorization codes and put those auth codes. So right now, if I try to retrieve a license, it's gonna fail because it doesn't have licenses. If I don't have licenses, I cannot get the dynamic updates, right? I cannot get a software updates, right? So let's quickly go to dynamic updates, which is this. The application and threat is free, right? It comes with a support automatic, so that's why you can get that, but you cannot get any other, most likely you cannot get any other updates, or even if you get that, that's probably be non-working. So try to support and let's try to get the software version. It says generic communication error, please check your connectivity. All right, we already have connectivity, as you know that we have configured all those. Right. All right, so download is 10 on that. Right, so check one more time. It's gonna keep saying that due to a generic communication error, right? But as you know, you literally downloaded this, so you do have connectivity. So the firewall is unable to connect to Palo Alto networks. Confirm that country is valid. You still want installation? Yes. Let's quickly make sure our services are correct. This is correct, this is correct. Let's take a look at the time if not. Okay. Look at dashboard, and it does say the time here, 23:32, which is correct time, very correct time. Commit, no commit changes, but still it's queued. Alright, so let's see. If you see here, no VM appliance license available, it is expired, so you cannot get the software update. What I am gonna do is to make an HA. I will bring down another firewall to same version 9.1.0.h3, right, which has a bring your own license, right? So I will be downgrading the firewall from 10.1.0 to 10.0.0 version, and then 9.1.0-h3. That's a hotfix 3 version. So I will downgrade it, and then we will resume the video to so the more fun stuff from Azure side to clean up everything, service principle, and how to form an HA.